I'm here today with Lisa, who is a recent graduate of the Powerful Presence program and has offered to share with us a little bit about her experience of the program. So, Lisa, just to say hello at first, would you tell everybody a little bit about your life, your work?
Sure. I'm a health and human services director of a mid-sized county in the San Francisco Bay Area. It's a very rewarding job and also very, very challenging. I have about 850 staff in my department. It's the third largest department in our county. And so I am very, very busy throughout the day doing very many different kinds of things in the course of the day. So I can go from intense meeting with the city to doing a presentation on the social determinants of health to talking with somebody at the state around a particular new bill or law to problem solving conflict on my team. So every day is constantly changing and in flux, and still I enjoy it.
Before you took the Powerful Presence program, how did you typically feel as you went about confronting those challenges?
Yeah, when we started, I had newly certified as a coach, was really dealing with some challenging issues on my team. And a lot of my energy and effort went toward giving to my team. And at that point in time, I felt the difference when I just gave and really built, really worked to connect.
Mm-hmm.
That was started to change relationships. But over the course of the last 7 or 8 years, I've had jobs with really increasing levels of responsibility, where I've continued to use that same relational strategy of really working to build teams, build relationships, really focus on how people connect and work together in really productive, collaborative ways. That's been my leadership strategy. But what I was finding over time is I was giving and giving and giving, and it was working to some extent with the teams, but I was just feeling always increasingly depleted
Mm-hmm.
um, as my week went by. So, I'd give it all up on Monday, Tuesday, I'd do, and by Friday, I had nothing left. And that would show itself with, most of the time I was calm in relationship with people and giving and in that space. But oftentimes I would just either blow up or give up and not have anything left. And strategically, as a leader, I could often be very focused on strategy in my head for how I related to people. Like, I need to have, I'm going to show up in this way so that this happens. And it was very strategic and also very exhausting and also very, I would say, linear. So, what drew me to powerful presence is recognizing that I really needed to find some spaciousness, like
Mm-hmm.
working with people in, right relationship is really important, but I didn't have the spaciousness to do that. And I felt like powerful presence would really help me evolve that spaciousness so that I could both be present at work with people, but also have some room for myself at home with my spouse, with my adult children.
Was there ever a time in hearing about Powerful Presence or reading about it on the webpage that you had any kind of hesitation or skepticism? I ask this because, we name things like working with consciousness and subtle energy perception, and some people are kind of like, well, I don't know. That did you ever have any hesitation about that?
I didn't have so I knew you, Grace, so I didn't have any hesitation, and you skillfully sort of led me in a way to my interest through our coaching relationship. But I will say that I was always the last person on the team building up to my interest in powerful presence. It's shifted in the last 2 to 3 years, but before that, I was the one. If we started a meeting with like get grounded, or people started talk about consciousness, or people were going on a retreat, I was like, oh my gosh, like I know that is not me. I was one to say, people would tell me they're meditating. I would be like, I could never sit still for 5 minutes. That just won't work for me. The fact that I'm practicing so much now is just kind of shocking even to myself. So no, I was not the kind of person that was drawn to that kind of practice. I had respect for people that did, but I always felt it wasn't something that was for me.
Mhm. So now, let's see, I want to explore what's different now, but I'm really curious about the exact transition from I'm not that kind of person and I roll and good for you, but I'm not doing that. Tell me about that transition and what nourished it as you move from there to a person who practices every day.
It really was about not having enough spaciousness to manage people, manage my life, manage what I wanted. I started to experience that with my body, and it started to matter. And it became sort of very metaphorical for me. And then I reconnected soon after that with you, Grace, and we did coaching, and I would ask for intellectual tools for doing things. And you would say, that's a good tool, but how about this? And you would subtly introduce something, and I could feel it in my body, like viscerally. Whereas the intellectuals, like, all the coaching tools and tricks were in my head. As I worked with you, Grace, on in our coaching, and you began sort of to slowly, not pulling me in intentionally, but I think you just sensed that you had some ways of being that could be helpful. It really resonated. It really resonated. And what especially resonated, that really I think led me to powerful presence, was this sense that I had what I needed. I didn't have to go in with sort of the prescription for how it was going to show up. I actually knew what it was. I didn't know how or why. And even talking about it now, I'm just really feeling that. But it was like, oh, I don't have to come up with all the tools and tricks. I just have to show up as me.
Yeah.
Now, how do I figure out how I show up with me? And then powerful presence kind of gave me I don't know the word, but maybe it's just it gave me the energy or a pathway. That's what it was. It gave me a pathway to figuring out when I'm just showing up as me.
Mm-hmm. And I would say, in reflecting the process I've seen you in, showing up as a larger, more authentic, more potent me than you even knew yourself to be before. And you're a confident person who has known yourself to be many of those things. I'm remembering a particular moment where you said to me recently, the coaching was great, Grace, but really everything changed with this chapter. Yeah. Something else I've seen in your process, having witnessed you for years now, is there's a pattern in your life where you have a tendency to be called into a setting, to a new job, to a new organization or whatever, the day or the week before chaos breaks out. And then it's your job to ground it, repair it, stabilize it, move it into a new reality. Have you noticed that?
Yes. And I'll just give an example. I started in my former role in a health director position 1 week before we shut down the entire Bay Area with COVID.
Yeah.
So that whole period was where I was going to get to meet people and go around and build those relationships was suddenly shattered.
Everyone was terrified. All usual systems were breaking down. There was a crisis. And that's a pattern that's happened in your life. So something wonderful about coaching, especially over the long term, is we get to observe the deep patterns that keep playing themselves out in a person's life and seeing if we can resource you even more and more to show up to those patterns, but also this is the consciousness part, allow yourself to use each of those calls into greater and greater challenge as exactly the liminal space or the edge that is for you to cross in showing up as even more pure an embodiment of what you carry in this life. And I've watched you do that in powerful presence. I've watched you really use the practices and take to them so easily. And I can see how that's really shifted because each of those challenges that you face are asking not only for your bright intellect, which you have, not only for your generous heart, which you have, not only for your mastery with all of the strategy and, more concrete ways that leadership shows up, but it's really asking for your presence, for your way of being to be so potent, so stable, so generous, and to be a transmission of something more than was available in that environment prior. And we talk a lot in Powerful Presence about how our very way of being can bring more resource and can calm a discordant situation, bring more resource into it, and enable everybody else to step into their own best selves. Have you seen that playing out?
Um, I have very much seen that playing out, but I'm realizing as we talk that I'm very much in one of those situations right now where there's been a complete restructure of our organization, and we have a new leader who is very intense and very moving at a very fast pace and creating a lot of change at a very, very fast pace, faster even I think than the organization. While the changes are good and important, they're happening at a pace that is very challenging. And I've been now called to his leadership team of four people. And I feel very, very certain that my role on this team is to bring that presence so that to sort of help that system do what it needs to do, but try to hold more of the calm and the presence on behalf of the organization, quite frankly. And I am finding that without these tools, I would, yes, I've been successful in the past and I would be able to do what I need to do, but I'm going to be a much stronger partner and leader than with these tools. Yeah. And I'm feeling it very much. It's to the point that when I go into these leadership meetings, I do my quick, just check in with myself, my quick presence, these wonderful tools. It doesn't take a lot of time or energy. And I walk in a much better place, and I have a much better, I can see the impact. I can literally see and feel the impact in doing this. And it's not a selfish impact. It's not about me. It's not about I'm going to now create this thing for these people. It's really about this is my role. This is my calling in this moment. And my presence in that is really helping to achieve the community outcomes that we ultimately are wanting to have. So
Yeah, that's beautiful. Can you reflect a little bit? You gave us a contrast earlier, or I'm expecting it might be a contrast, when you talked about I used to walk into a situation because being in right relationship is so important to me, and I would give and give and give. So that's an example of kind of giving from our personal self and our personal energy to something, and then I felt depleted. So is that experience changed at all since using the powerful presence tools?
yes, in two ways. One is in those situations, even walking into them, and sometimes they walk into me. I remind myself that I can do this. And I also have a physical, for me, way of knowing, and I also have boundaries. And I know where I am and where that thing is. And I remind myself of those boundaries. And it's not like a mental, like talking to myself reminder. It's more of a physical, experiential. Remember, it's just a feel the thing. I feel the thing. And I'm finding I can deal with stressful situations more calmly. I feel like when my team is very stressed out around me, I can slow down and help calm them down so we can think and behave, in productive ways.
Mhm.
I find that it's much easier. I have struggled for years in giving difficult feedback to people and or messaging difficult things to people, and I'm finding it so much easier to
Mm.
do. And it's something that it's been a barrier for me that something I've had to work on, but this helps me more than, sort of reading a book about courageous
Mhm.
conversations. This actually helps me in the space feel safe and acknowledge what is me and what isn't me.
That's fantastic. You were alluding to some something else I think is really potent about what we learn in Powerful Presence. There's a big difference between feeling like I personally have to do something about this, to fix it, and stepping into the kind of, you said, my calling in this moment. So you're not talking about, some of us might feel we have a mission in this life or in our work, but you're saying moment to moment, I'm aware of my calling. So what that says to me is you are successfully occupying that space where we know that my individual ego and resource, capacity and skills and expertise are all in service of what this moment requires. And I know I'm in alignment, sort of like my gifts are in alignment with a higher calling, and my ego is the sort of implementer rather than the one needing to know that I'm okay and needing to know that you like me and approve of me. That's out of the way. So you're able to do that. And that's part of why we don't get depleted. We're actually drawing energy, resource, inspiration, intelligence from some place bigger than our personal constructed sense of self. It's a larger self, and it's everything. So we can pull that from something that is inexhaustible. Um, and when we do that, we're not depleted. We're not using our own personal well being to resource what's going on around us. We're actually allowing ourselves to be a conduit or a vehicle through which what's available in life is available to everyone. That was really well said. Um, okay.
And I actually want to add another thing that
Yeah.
also really meaningful to me is that I have a lot more empathy for other people because I also, when I'm present and people come to me and I see like all this stuff, when I'm fully present, which isn't all the time, I have to pull myself back into it, you know. Um, I see people that are not present, or I see the spinning, or I see energy, or I experience energy that I know isn't really somebody else's true self.
Yeah.
So even for people that I struggle with, I don't, we don't get along, or I don't like, I have a lot more empathy for who they are, or where they come from, and all
Mhm.
the not their own stuff that is messing around.
Mhm.
And it's a lot easier to just um, take a step back and be in relationship with challenging people when you
Mm.
see that so vividly.
That's fantastic. That's beautiful. And then when you're resting in that kind of acceptance of yourself and the other and what's happening, it's so much less likely that we'll contribute to the discord or set off reactions in other people. So it's sort of like we pull the plug on that reactivity that just ping pongs between people who are affecting one another. So it can bring a lot of peace to the situation. I also love hearing you say, I see all the energy moving. As I have known you prior to this, it's my sense, you can tell me if this is right or not, that you would not before probably have described yourself as a person who sees energy.
No,
No, right. Okay, I wasn't exaggerating. No.
I wouldn't have said that, but I will say that there's certain things that I could see that I now see as energy that I didn't see before. So one thing that I've always been really good at is if I'm watching a sports event and it's the kind of event where like diving or gymnastics or something where you see somebody's going to do something really fast and they're going to land standing or fall on their butt or whatever.
Mhm.
I've been one of those people that could predict just looking at them what was going to happen,
Mhm.
and I'm right like 90% of the time. I realize now that is also perceiving energy. Like that is perceiving where they are. right before they do their thing. So, but you're right. I've not been that person.
Well, I love that because what it reinforces for us is that everybody, there's no such thing as like a woo woo person who, you know, can do this and other people can't. We all have this capacity. It's an innate part of our nervous systems, of our consciousness, of our capacities, but we're conditioned or trained not to be aware of that because society has sort of like a prescribed set of what is possible to see. And so I think a lot of this work is opening the aperture of our perception. Not that we weren't perceiving it before, but we were obscuring it from ourselves. So we're able now. So that's a great example. If you can see it with a gymnast, then you can see it with your team or with what's going on at work. To be able to know, oh, this is what's unfolding because I see the seed of it and I know where that goes. So we can respond even before a thing happens or very early in the process. So that's beautiful. And we talk in Powerful Presence about energy being, energy is used in a lot of ways. Energy, in the way we're using it, being the perceptible form of consciousness. So, really, it is what we can perceive and sense that is a transmission of information coming from another person or from a situation. And so, when we can receive that, we receive it so much faster than our brain can process a thought. Or we can observe with our physical senses something happening. So when we perceive it at its subtlest level, we can respond to it when it's the simplest and when all it takes is a little nudge. It doesn't have to become a drama, right? Yeah, that's great. That's great. Thank you. So if you had one or two things that you would offer or suggest to anyone watching this who might have challenges similar to yours or who might be considering learning new ways of being with them, what might you say?
Well, first, I'm so grateful that I have these tools because anybody who has a job situation or life situation that really demands a lot out of you constantly and persistently and over a long period of time, I just feel these tools, they're going to keep me healthy. They're going to
Mm-hmm.
keep me engaged. They're going to keep me caring about what I do and who I'm with. In terms of the course itself, like I said, I'm not a person who it traditionally was, woo woo or whatever that means, or like into, meditation. Um, the way that you introduce the material skill by skill was just so perfect for me. The first time that I really leaned into sort of, you know, really sensing sort of my energetic field, I was a little bit not overwhelmed, but it was a lot. But I
Yeah.
also, it was a lot, but it was not too much, but it was a lot. And I sensed it and I practiced and I learned it. And then the next time you introduce a little bit more, people get to integrate and talk about their experiences. And so if you had sort of started with the final product, it would have been overwhelming and challenging, but that you introduce things piece by piece in ways that make sense is just it's your pedagogy. It's so beautiful and helpful. And the opportunities to really integrate what we learn has been wonderful. And I really miss them actually after the closure. Um, I I just don't know what for me, it's a game changer. And there's not a lot in my life, that, none of us have that many things in our lives that we can point to that like, oh, well, that changed things. Well, for me, in a 3-month course, it really changed me and set me on a new course. Um, I think it will make me a stronger leader, a stronger mother, a more, a loving wife. It's just, it's worth it.
Mm. That is fantastic to hear. That's the desire. I'm really, really glad just to hear that from you, Lisa. And you were referencing kind of missing the integration sessions that we had. Could you speak a little bit about, we had a group of people, a small, intimate group of people that were learning together. Can you say something about how that was for you?
I was nervous at first. A small, intimate group of people. I'm jumping into something that is so new to me, and I just felt really, it was a supportive group, small group. People were open, so respectful, and different. The other thing about it was that they all experienced energy different. And so with this small group, we got to have deep enough conversations that you really understood. And I think it's important for this work that the way you experience energy is different than how somebody else does, which makes it, much more rich and complex, and inspired more curiosity about all the diverse people that I work with and spend time with. You created a very safe space for us. We had never met each other before. And, it was invaluable. And I loved the way that you set it up with the group that we had. It felt like just the right people together.
Mhm. This work does tend to attract really good people. I'm also careful about curating the groups and setting a culture in the groups that's useful. But people who get attracted to this work generally really want to be of beneficial impact to the world, larger than themselves, larger than their own lives. They're committed to being good influences, and they know that there's more to who they are than we've been told all our lives. So really good people do tend to step into this kind of thing. Okay, well, is there any last words you'd offer?
No, I'm really grateful for the work, and I'm actually really grateful for the conversation.
Hmm.
Um, one thing about doing this work is you meet really great people that, Grace, you connect people together that do this work. And so, even with the end of Powerful Presence, there are other opportunities that you offer to come together, whether it's, an equinox meditation online, you do in-person things. And so I'm just excited to continue the work and the relationships that I think will grow from the
Mm-hmm.
work.
I'm really glad to hear that. Yes, this powerful presence is actually the entry point to a whole um, body of work that begins with being able to hold our own energy field, to hold our consciousness, to be a presence that understands how to interact with others and with the challenges that we face in a constructive way. But then we move into, there's a whole community I hold called the Wellspring community that is built around the framework you've probably seen, and people who visited my website may have seen, about embodying true power. You've been learning that in Powerful Presence, accessing deep wisdom, where we begin to be able to interact with our intuitive and empathic ways of knowing with integrity, uh, understanding what's legitimate and where we might be projecting or bring our own material. So we really go deep in one of the cohorts of that community called the Alchemists on transmuting energetics in ourselves and in the world that may not be useful, and stepping into deep integrity when we're using subtle energy perception or our refined ways of knowing through intuition and empathy. We're not taught how to do that with integrity, and we can get messy. So we kind of clean that up in that part. And then the third part of the model is having life supporting impact, being able to be in alignment with our own calling, using mastery and our new subtle skills, and then co-creating with others and with the universe, basically, to create benefits for all of life, not just what we care about, not just our own, not just me and mine, but all life is lifted up when we're stepping into the artistry of living in that way. So yeah, there's a whole body of work that comes after Powerful Presence, but it's the doorway. It's the beginning part. And Lisa, it is a delight. It has been an honor and a delight. I can't say that with enough enthusiasm, knowing you all these years, working with you, watching you evolve, watching you step from context to context and bring yourself with more and more integrity and fullness, and to see you just really blossoming with these tools under your belt. So thank you for taking the time to have this conversation with me, and for sharing with everyone else what it is that this experience has been for you.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.
Great.